welcome back to the pinescript bootcamp. Today we're going to move on to a new indicator. This one is for a moving average cloud. So basically a cloud is an area between two different plots. So in this case we're going to be using two different moving averages to create a cloud that kind of gives you an idea of where you should be buying and selling. So basically you'll have a fast and a slow moving average, and when the fast one crosses over or under the slow one, it kind of creates a separation, and then it will end up having a area between the two, and whenever price moves into that area, that kind of is an indication of like selling into the trend or buying into the trend. Basically, you know, if the cloud is below price and it dips into it, you should buy it. If the cloud is above price and it gets into it, you should sell it. Basically, it's a trend following kind of indicator. So we'll go ahead and get started here in a minute. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the coding. So just as we did last time, first thing we want to do, of course, is create a new blank script. So if you don't already have that, you click on this caret here, create new, and you want a new indicator. And then you get your auto-generated content here. So we want to change the name, just like we did last time. So this time we're going to call it the moving average cloud. And we want to specify one extra thing in here that we didn't do last time, which is to add an overlay. So we want to set overlay to true, because what this setting does is it tells TradingView to instead of putting it as a separate panel the way that it was with the RSI indicator, instead it's going to put it straight on top of here, right? So we want to make sure that we save our script. We got moving average cloud. We add it to the chart one time, not twice, and you'll see that we have our plot now, the plot of the closing price. Instead of being in a separate panel, it's directly on top of the candle. So you can see how it's actually plotting it directly on the closing price of every candle, which is the behavior that we definitely do want. So now let's go ahead and flesh out or to start our structure. So we have our declarations section, followed by our user inputs. Then we have our custom types, custom methods, and our variables. Then we have our core logic and our visuals at the end. All right, so now we're ready to get started. And the first step in this indicator is going to be to create a moving average. So we'll go through this a little faster than we did with RSI, because you should be at least a little bit familiar with what we're doing here. So first thing we want to do is create a variable. We'll call this the fast moving average. And that is going to be a float, because there will be sometimes when this is a decimal value. So we will default that to 0. We are then going to move into our core logic where we calculate this. So actually, before we do that, let's just go ahead and throw in our user input, right? Because we want the user to be able to specify how long the length is of this moving average. So we'll do fast MA length, and that's going to be an int, equals input.int, and we'll call that fast MA length. Oops, I gotta set the default value. So fast one we'll do 9. We'll call that fast MA length, and then that way when we come down to the core logic and we set fast moving average, we're going to set that to a new value using, again, the TA, right, technical analysis collection, and we'll go through and this time we will also use the SMA again, just like we did last time. So we have the simple moving average. The source of this is going to be the closing price, just like before, and our length is going to be the user specified fast MA length, and then we will plot that value, fast moving average. All right, so let's check on the chart, make sure everything's going well. So now, instead of the closing price, we do see a moving average that when we go into the settings, we can use the inputs and we can change that to something bigger like 20. And you'll see that get longer, or 50, get even longer and smoother, right? So everything is working as intended. Good first step. Now, of course, in order to create the cloud, we're going to need a second moving average that we can fill the space between. So we'll go back into our script and we'll basically do the same process over again. So let's go ahead and copy and paste. This one is going to be our slow moving average though. So we want this to have a higher value. We want it to be longer than the fast one. Now, of course, it doesn't have to be, but in order to just make the names make sense, we will use a longer value on the slow than we have on the fast. Similarly, we need to create the variable that stores the slow moving average value. Then we need to calculate the slow moving average. And of course, we want to make sure that we're changing to use the correct variable, right? The slow MA length rather than the fast one. Everything else is pretty much the same. Then we're going to plot the moving average. And we'll update the chart. And now you can see we have two moving averages. And you can kind of see already that we have this space between the two of them, right? And whenever you see candles kind of encroaching into it, once this cloud starts picking a direction, right, and bends up, you can see how prices come in here, and that can be supportive of a trend continuation, right? So if you jump in when we dip into this cloud and ride it up for a while, you can make money that way. Similarly on the other end, right, when it comes in and it dips, it pops up into this cloud and you sell it, right, you can make money heading down. So this is the general concept of the script, and it's working so far. Now what we want to do, of course, is to kind of add some fill into there to give us a visual cue of what to be done in those areas. So we'll start with a fairly basic kind of set of logic. First thing that we're going to need is a variable, right? We need to declare a color. So for this, we'll say color, and then since we want it to just be a color code, I'm going to call it color code, and I need to initialize it to some kind of value. You can pick a color such as white or blue or black or whatever, or you can just pick NA, in which case it defaults to no color at all. So in other words, it would just leave it the way that it is. So that's our initialized value. However, of course, we're going to change it. So we need to come in here, and we're going to start with something new. We're going to use a conditional logic. So that's basically, in other languages, you might know that as an if-then statement. So we're going to say if a certain condition is met, then we want to do something else. So if something's true, then do this other thing. That's what we're writing out here. So what we want to see is in the chart, if the fast moving average is above the slow moving average, right, that means that we're headed up. So we want to set the color to be green, right, to indicate to us that we want to buy. And Similarly, on the other end, if the fast moving average is below the slow moving average, we want to indicate that by coloring this red, telling us we should be selling when we touch that cloud. So let's go in here and see that. So if fast moving average, if the value of it that we calculated here, remember that this needs to be done from top to bottom. That's why we put these things in the sections that they're in. So the core logic, we need to first calculate those moving average values, then we can compare them. So if the fast one is greater than the slow moving average, then you don't actually type out then in pinescript. It just is implied by the fact that you indent. If you don't have it indented, it doesn't work. You have to indent. So you got to push tab. Or up here you push enter, and it just automatically tabs it for you. So if the fast moving average is greater than slow moving average, then we want to set the color code. We're going to change it, right? So again, we need to use the colon equals, and we're going to use color.green. Similarly, and remember we need to go back to the same line as this, right? If you put the indent, if you put another if statement here under color code, then it's stacking the if condition. And you don't want that, right? You want this to be a separate if condition. So if fast moving average is less than the slow moving average, then we want the color code to be set to color.red. So now you can see we have two different statements. If it's above it, then we go green. If it's below it, then we go red. And then finally, we're going to use a new plot in order to use this color. So this is called a fill. Basically, we want to fill the space between two things. Now, well, it's calling for two different lines, and they need to be stored as a variable. So right now, we're not storing these plots as anything. So let's just change that now, and we're going to make this into fast MA, and this one will be slow MA. So that way we're saving these in variables, these plots, that we can then refer to in this one. So we want fast MA, slow MA, and then it wants to know what color should we put it, right? What color should we fill? Well, let's use our color code color. So now we can update the chart, take a look, and it's working, right? So we've got a nice bright green, like almost neon green, telling us to buy, and bright red telling us to sell. Not the prettiest, but it is working. Good job. All right, so now that we have all the core functionality worked out on this moving average script, the moving average cloud that is, let's see if we can clean it up. As we did with the RSI, you have our basic inputs here, and you've got your styles that you can change manually here, but they don't really save. So you're always going to kind of default to this really ugly kind of looking aesthetic. So let's see what we can do to clean that up a little bit, make it a little more visually appealing. So just like we did last time, we have our fast MA and slow MA. So let's make sure that those are defaulted to different colors. Generally, you'll have one blue and one orange. So when you're using fast and slow MAs, when you have two, a lot of times blue and orange are used as the color codes for that. So the fast one will usually be color.blue, and the slow one will usually be color.orange. So when we update the chart, that changes it a little bit. So we're still kind of a little bit ugly. Again, I like to also make the slower one a little thicker. So just like we did last time, we use our line width option, and we'll set that to 3 to make that a little thicker. So yeah, now we have a bolder orange one. The blue one almost disappears into the background as well, so maybe we can make that one a little thicker too. Line width equals 2. Make that stand out a little more. Yep, good. So now we've got clearer visuals on our lines, and that helps us to see, kind of which one is the fast one, which one is the slow one, where are those values. And one more change that I'd like to make is these really nasty looking cloud colors. By using the default colors that are loaded in TradingView, when you use those as fill colors, they just really, I don't know, they just look really ugly. So I prefer to make custom colors for those. So the way you do that is in here, in the script, where you say color.green, instead of saying color.green, what we can do is we can say color.new, and then we are manually creating a new color. And so what that basically is, it's it's not like mixing paint or anything like that. Basically what you're able to do then is to use one of the basic colors and then set its transparency. So by using color.green and then specifying a new transparency, we can make something that's a little less abrasive on the charts. So you go from 0 to 100. 0 means not transparent at all. Basically, that's where it is right now. When you use just color.green, it sets the transparency to 0. 100 would be completely invisible. I like to use the value of 90. It makes it nice and subtle, but still able to be seen. Similar for the red one, we'll do color.red, and then also set that one to 90, and you can see the difference on the chart here. So now it's a little lighter, maybe even too light. You could maybe go something a little brighter, like 75, something like that. Yeah, that's maybe the sweet spot. So 75 looks pretty good to me, and as we can see, this is in these conditions, this moving average cloud works beautifully. You can see how anytime that we're not breaching the slow one, all we're doing is we're just coming into the cloud. It works here and here and here and here and here, right? It works several times, plenty of opportunities to make a little bit of profit. Similar on the other side, every time that we're touching inside this cloud, you got plenty of opportunities to sell and make some money there. So so far so good. That I call that a successful script.